The Belgian Malinois moved like death itself. 85 pounds of muscle and fury, black coat, bristling scar tissue cutting across its muzzle like a lightning strike frozen in flesh. The dog's eyes held no recognition, no mercy, only the raw primal hunger of a predator that hadn't eaten in 48 hours. Elena Sterling stood her ground. 5'3", 26 years old, dark auburn hair pulled tight in a regulation bun, eyes the color of storm clouds over the Pacific. She didn't run, didn't scream, didn't give the men watching from outside the kennel the satisfaction of seeing fear. The dog Reaper, according to the faded nameplate on the chain-link fence, launched forward. 3 powerful strides closed the distance between them. Jaws opened wide, revealing teeth designed by evolution to rip and tear. The scent of starvation and rage filled the enclosed space, mixing with concrete dust and the metallic tang of old blood. Outside the fence, 8 Navy SEALs watched with cold anticipation. Senior Chief Brock Maddox stood at the center, arms crossed over a chest thick with muscle, gone slightly soft around the edges. 6'2", 240 pounds, buzz-cut hair, showing threads of gray at the temples. His face looked like it had been carved from granite, then used for target practice. At 44, he carried himself with the kind of authority that came from spending 2 decades making younger men fear him. To his right, Specialist Trent Aldrich held up his phone recording. 28 years old, still trying to prove he belonged among these warriors. His voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Die now, bitch." Laughter followed, harsh, masculine. The sound of men who believed they were about to witness someone break. But Elena Sterling didn't break. Instead, she did something that would have seemed insane to anyone watching from outside that kennel. As Reaper closed the final feet between them, she turned her body at a 45-degree angle, made herself smaller, lowered her center of gravity into a crouch that took weight off her heels and distributed it across the balls of her feet. And she made a sound, not a scream, not a shout, something that came from deep in her throat below the register of normal human speech. A specific vocalization that existed in the ancient language of pack animals. The sound a mother dog makes when calming her pups. A frequency between 150 and 200 hertz that bypassed conscious thought and spoke directly to canine instinct. Her father had taught her to make it when she was 8 years old. Reaper stopped. 6 feet away, the attack froze mid-stride. The dog's head tilted, confusion replacing fury. The growl cut off abruptly like someone had flipped a switch in the animal's brain. Elena continued the vocalization, soft, rhythmic, non-threatening. She slowly sat down on the concrete floor, keeping her body angled away, eyes averted. Submissive posture. No challenge, no threat. She opened her hands, palms up, and rested them on her knees. Then she waited. Outside the kennel, the silence became absolute. Every SEAL watching had gone completely still. Even Trent's phone stopped shaking in his hand. Reaper took a tentative step forward, then another. The dog's nose worked overtime, processing sense, reading information invisible to human senses. Adrenaline, sweat. But underneath those fear markers, something else. Something that smelled like pack, like safety, like home. Elena whispered, barely audible even in the quiet space. "Easy, warrior. I know they hurt you. I know you're hungry. I know they made you into something you never wanted to be." Her voice carried no fear, only calm certainty. "But I'm not your enemy. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help." The dog moved closer, cautiously. The aggression giving way to curiosity. Reaper sniffed her hands, her neck, her face, reading her story through scent and pheromones. Learning who she was through methods older than language. Elena slowly, so slowly it seemed like time itself had downshifted, raised her right hand. She moved it toward the dog's head, telegraphing the motion, giving Reaper every opportunity to pull away or snap. Her fingers found the spot just behind the dog's left ear. A pressure point she'd learned from her father. A cluster of nerves that, when massaged, correctly released endorphins and created a calming sensation that bypassed fear responses. She applied gentle circular pressure. Reaper's eyes half closed. A sound emerged from the dog's throat, not a growl this time, but something else. Almost like a sigh. The release of tension held too long. Elena's other hand found the matching spot behind the right ear. She massaged both pressure points simultaneously, using her thumbs to work the tension out of muscles that had been wound tight for too long. "That's it," she whispered. "Let it go. You're safe now. I've got you." Reaper made a sound that was almost a whimper, the kind of noise that suggested pain releasing stress draining away. And then in a movement that seemed to defy everything the observers thought they knew about this animal, the dog lay down. Not in submission, in trust. Reaper rested its massive head on Elena's lap. She stroked the scarred muzzle gently, feeling the old wounds, the places where this magnificent animal had been hurt, in service to humans who'd never properly thanked it. "Good boy," she murmured. "Such a good boy. You've been so brave, so strong. But you don't have to fight anymore. Not with me. Never with me." She sat there for a full minute, just breathing with the tongue, feeling the rise and fall of its ribs, establishing connection, building trust, creating the foundation of a partnership. Finally, she spoke clearly, confidently, using the commands in German that SEAL combat dogs were trained to understand. "Reaper, sits." The dog immediately sat up, attentive, eyes locked on Elena's face. "Platz." Reaper dropped into a prone position, still watching her with absolute focus. "Bei Fuß." The dog moved to her left side, matching her pace perfectly as she stood and walked toward the kennel door. Shoulder aligned with her left leg, moving in synchronized steps that spoke of complete trust and understanding. Elena knocked twice on the chain link fence. The door opened. She walked out with Reaper at perfect heel. The dog's shoulder stayed aligned with her leg, moving in steps so synchronized they could have been a single organism. Not through force, not through fear, through partnership. The corridor remained silent. 8 Navy SEALs stared at her with expressions ranging from shock to disbelief to something that looked almost like fear. Trent Aldrich's phone had stopped recording. His jaw hung open like someone had disconnected the muscles controlling it. Commander Nash Brennan slowly straightened from where he'd been leaning against the opposite wall. 58 years old, silver hair, cut military short, a face mapped with scars earned over 3 decades of service. He'd been at Desert Storm in '91, had seen things that would break lesser men, but even he looked stunned. "I'll be damned," he said softly. Brock Maddox stood frozen. His face had drained of color. Elena watched emotions flicker across his features. Surprise, yes, but underneath that, something darker. Something that looked almost like fear mixed with recognition. She stopped directly in front of him. Reaper sat without being commanded, a solid presence at her side. When Elena spoke, her voice carried through the corridor with perfect clarity. "Your training methods are outdated, Senior Chief. Starvation and isolation don't create discipline. They create trauma. Reaper isn't aggressive. He's terrified. He's been hurt, punished, treated like a weapon instead of a partner." She paused, letting the words sink in. "He deserves better." Another pause. Elena looked at each face in turn, memorizing reactions, filing away information. "I'm Garrett Sterling's daughter. My father was Master Chief, K9 Handler, SEAL Team 3. He taught me that dogs are teammates, not tools. He taught me to earn their trust instead of demanding their submission. He taught me that real strength isn't about domination." She met Maddox's eyes directly. "It's about partnership." The silence that followed felt heavy enough to collapse the building. Somewhere in the distance, another dog barked. The sound echoed off concrete and faded into nothing. Commander Brennan cleared his throat. "I think we've seen enough." He looked at Maddox. "Senior Chief assigned her to primary handler rotation. She's earned it." Maddox's jaw clenched. A muscle twitched in his cheek, but he nodded. "Yes, sir." The SEALs began filing out, conversations starting in low murmurs. Trent Aldrich paused as he passed Elena. "That was..." He struggled for words. "I've never seen anyone handle Reaper like that." "How did you..." "My father taught me," Elena said simply. "I'm sorry about earlier. The phone, the comment, that was out of line." She studied him. Young, maybe 28, still trying to prove himself. The kind of operator who acted tough because he wasn't entirely sure he was tough enough. "Reaper forgave you the moment I walked out of that kennel," she said. "I can too." Something like respect flickered in his eyes. He nodded and walked away. Eventually, only 3 people remained in the corridor. Elena, Commander Brennan, and Brock Maddox. Maddox stared at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. When he finally spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. You're good. Better than I expected. He paused. But being good with thugs isn't enough. Combat operations require more than party tricks. I'm aware, sir. Your father was good too. One of the best. Maddox's eyes went flat. He's dead. Has been for 13 years. Maybe you should think about whether following in his footsteps is really the smart play. The threat wasn't subtle. Elena held his gaze, refused to look away first. I've thought about nothing else for 13 years, Senior Chief, and I'm exactly where I need to be. Something shifted in Maddox's expression. Understanding, maybe, or recognition of an enemy he'd underestimated. He turned and walked away without another word. His footsteps echoed until the corridor doors slammed shut. Brennan moved closer. His face showed a mixture of pride and concern. Your father saved my life, he said quietly. Kandahar, 2009. His dog detected a Taliban ambush before they could spring it. 12 of us would have died if not for Garrett Sterling. Thank you for telling me that, sir. What you did just now, Brennan gestured toward the kennel. That was exactly how he would have handled it. Same technique, same patience, same result. I learned from the best. But now Maddox knows you're a threat. He'll be watching you, every move and every interaction. If he suspects what you're really doing here, Brennan trailed off. Elena looked down at Reaper, who sat calmly at her side. The terror and aggression from earlier had completely vanished. Let him watch, she said. I'm not backing down. Not now, not ever. Brennan nodded slowly. Then he did something that surprised her. He extended his hand. Welcome to Naval Special Warfare K-9 Operations, Chief Petty Officer Sterling. She shook his hand. His grip was firm, calloused. The handshake of someone who'd spent a lifetime doing things that required hard work and harder choices. Report to my office at 0800 tomorrow, Brennan continued. We need to talk about your father, about what really happened in Kandahar, and about why Brock Maddox just looked at you like he'd seen a ghost. He released her hand and walked toward the exit, paused at the door. Get some rest, Sterling. You're going to need it. Then he was gone. Elena stood alone in the corridor with Reaper. The dog pressed against her leg. Solid, warm, loyal in a way that transcended words. She reached down and stroked his scarred head. Come on, boy. Let's get you fed. Properly this time. The barracks room was small, barely large enough for a bed desk and locker, but it was hers. Elena set her Alice pack on the desk, the same model her father had carried 30 years earlier. 60 pounds of gear, clothing, and one item that mattered more than all the rest combined. Her father's journal. Reaper settled in the corner, finally relaxed, the trauma of his morning experience fading under Elena's gentle presence. She filled a bowl with water, another with food from her pack. The dog ate slowly at first, then with more confidence. 13 years of improper feeding had taught him that meals might be taken away. But Elena sat with him, one hand resting on his shoulder, until he understood that this food was his. No conditions, no punishment. When he finished, she opened the journal. The leather cover was worn smooth from handling. Her mother had found it in Garrett Sterling's personal effects. Sealed in plastic, marked "Property of Master Chief Garrett Sterling, SEAL Team 3. Had given it to Elena before she died 6 years ago. Cancer. 18 months of watching her mother waste away while she felt helpless. He wanted you to have this, her mother had whispered in the hospital. Said if anything happened to him, these pages would tell you everything you needed to know. Elena had been working on decoding it ever since. Her father had used a cipher. Part military shorthand, part personal code. Designed so that only someone with his training, his knowledge could read it. Someone like his daughter. She opened to a marked page, an entry from October 10th, 2011, 5 days before her father died. The handwriting was cramped, efficient, packing maximum information into minimum space. October 10, 2011, Kandahar FOB, confirmed 5 Vipers in the nest. BM is 1 possibly RV at top. Smuggling operation confirmed, not drugs. Weapons-grade material. Destination unknown, but payment traced to offshore accounts. They know I know. Going to brief TK tomorrow if I survive tonight's patrol. If something happens, trust the dogs. They know who the wolves are. Tell Elena I love her. BM, Brock Maddox, RV. She'd been working on that one, cross-referencing personnel records from her father's final deployment. The most likely candidate was Captain Richmond Vance, currently stationed at Naval Special Warfare Command. Decorated veteran. Grenada, Panama, Desert Storm, Afghanistan, Iraq. The kind of officer with political connections all the way to the Pentagon. Untouchable. TK, Thaddeus Kane, her father's best friend, his platoon leader during Panama in '89. The man who'd been at Garrett Sterling's side through Grenada, through Desert Storm, through a dozen operations that would never appear in official records. Elena pulled out her laptop, began searching personnel databases. Found what she was looking for. Master Chief Thaddeus Kane, 68 years old, retired from active duty 5 years ago. Currently worked as a civilian contractor at Naval Special Warfare Center training K-9 units. Passing on knowledge earned through blood and time. Still here, on base, less than half a mile away. She glanced at the clock, 22:30 hours. Late, but not too late. Elena stood. Reaper looked up, immediately ready to follow. Stay, boy. Guard. The dog settled back down. Not happy about it, but obedient. She locked the door behind her and headed into the California night. The K-9 training facility sat at the eastern edge of the compound, downwind from everything else. Smart placement. Dogs made noise, and war dogs made more noise than most. She could hear them now as she approached. Barking, howling. The sound of animals bred and trained for violence waiting for their next mission. The facility looked exactly like every other military building she'd ever seen. Cinder block construction, flat roof industrial lighting. Functional to the point of being hostile. The only concession to aesthetics was a faded mural near the entrance. A German shepherd in tactical gear painted in desert camouflage colors. The door wasn't locked. Elena pushed it open and stepped inside. The smell hit her first. Not unpleasant, just intense. Dog concrete disinfectant. And underneath it all, the distinct scent of controlled aggression. 12 kennels lined the main corridor, 6 on each side. Most were occupied. She could see the dogs now. Belgian Malinois primarily, with a few German shepherds mixed in. All of them alert. All of them watching her with the kind of focus that most humans couldn't maintain for more than a few seconds. Well, working late, aren't we? The voice came from her left. Not hostile, but cautious. Elena turned and found herself looking at a man who seemed designed to intimidate through sheer presence rather than overt aggression. 6'1", maybe 220 pounds. Silver hair cut military short, a face that looked like it had been weathered by decades of sun and wind and hard decisions. He walked with a barely perceptible limp right leg, probably shrapnel, but his shoulders stayed square and his eyes stayed sharp. Master Chief Thaddeus Kane. Elena recognized him instantly from photographs. Her father's best friend. The man who'd held her at Garrett Sterling's funeral while she cried. The man who'd promised her father he'd look after her if anything happened. Kane looked at her, and she watched his expression shift through several emotions in rapid succession. Confusion, recognition, shock, and finally something that looked almost like pain. Jesus Christ, he said softly. Garrett's little girl. The corridor fell silent. Even the pain seemed to sense the change in atmosphere. Elena found her voice. Master Chief Kane, it's good to see you again. He moved closer, the limp more pronounced now, like the shock had made him forget to compensate. He stopped a few feet away, studying her face with an intensity that made her want to look away. She didn't. You have his eyes, Kane said. Same storm gray color, same expression, like you're always analyzing, always 3 steps ahead of everyone else. He paused. Does your mother know you're here? My mother passed away 6 years ago. Cancer. Something in his face broke just a little. I didn't know, I'm sorry. It was quick. She didn't suffer much. The lie came easily. Her mother had suffered tremendously, wasting away over 18 months while Elena watched helplessly. But some truths were too heavy to share with strangers, even strangers who'd once been family. Kane's hand went to his face, rubbed his eyes like he was trying to clear away images he didn't want to see. Why are you here, Elena? And don't tell me it's just to carry on your father's work. I know that look. I've seen it before. She made a decision. reached into her jacket and pulled out the journal. Worn leather cover, pages yellowed with age. Dad kept a journal. Mom found it in his personal effects. Gave it to me before she died. Most of it's encrypted, but I've been working on decoding it for 6 years. She opened to a marked page and handed it to him. Read the entry from October 10th, 2011, 5 days before he died. Kane took the journal with the care usually reserved for religious texts. His eyes moved across the page. Elena watched his expression shift from curiosity to shock to something that looked like barely controlled rage. "Jesus Christ," he whispered. The entry was short, devastating. Kane looked up from the journal. His face had gone pale. "BM, Brock Maddox. That's my conclusion. In RV, you think that's Captain Richmond Vance. Commander of Special Operations Integration. Been at Naval Special Warfare Command for 15 years. Decorated veteran. Grenada, Panama, Desert Storm. Political connections all the way to—" "I don't care who he knows," Kane interrupted. "I care that your father discovered something worth killing him over. And I care that the men responsible have been walking free for 13 years. He handed back the journal. "This is dangerous, Elena. If you're right, if Garrett was murdered by fellow SEALs, then those same men are still here, still operating, still protected by the system. They'll kill you too if they realize what you're doing." "I know." "Do you?" Kane's voice sharpened. "Because your father was the best handler I ever knew, the best tactical mind, the best friend a man could ask for. And they killed him anyway. What makes you think you'll fare better?" Elena met his eyes. "Because I'm not alone. My father tried to do this by himself, but I have his journals, I have his evidence, and I have you." Kane went very still. "What makes you think I'll help?" "Because you've been carrying guilt for 13 years. Because you knew something was wrong and didn't push hard enough. Because you made a promise to my father." She stepped closer. "And because you're the one he trusted. TK, he wrote about you in his final entry, said he was going to brief you the next day. He gave you evidence, didn't he? Copies of something? Financial records, maybe, communication logs, something he wanted preserved in case they got to him first." Kane's expression confirmed it before his words did. "I've had questions about your father's death since the day it happened," he said quietly. "The official investigation was sealed. Anyone I tried to talk to about it either got transferred or told me to let it go. I pushed as hard as I could, but I was just one old man with suspicions and no proof." He paused. "I wasn't brave enough to push harder. That's something I'll have to live with." Elena pulled out another page from the journal, a different entry. October 14th, 2011, 3 days before he died. Kane took it, read. His hand started shaking. "Final entry before mission. Tomorrow we patrol Route Delta Standard Sweep, but I have bad feeling. BM volunteered to ride in my vehicle, never done that before. RV personally selected the route, also unusual. I've informed TK of my suspicions, given him copy of evidence. If I don't return, he knows what to do. To Elena, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I won't be there to teach you, protect. You watch you grow into the woman I know you'll become. But you're strong, stronger than you know. Finish what I started. Expose the vipers. Protect the pack. Trust the dogs. They know who the wolves are. I love you, baby girl. Always and forever. Dad." Kane lowered the page. Elena saw tears on his weathered face. "He knew," Kane whispered. "He knew they were going to kill him, and he went anyway. Because that's who he was. A man who did the right thing even when it cost him everything." Kane looked at her for a long moment. Then slowly something in his expression shifted. The fear remained, but underneath it, she saw something else. Recognition. Respect. The look of someone seeing a ghost and realizing it had come back to finish unfinished business. "You're really going through with this?" "Yes. Even knowing it might get you killed. Especially knowing that." Kane studied her face, seeing her father's determination, his refusal to back down, his absolute commitment to doing what was right, regardless of personal cost. Finally, Kane extended his hand. "Garrett saved my life in Kandahar 2009. I owe him everything. I should have pushed harder when he died, should have demanded answers, should have protected his legacy." Elena took his hand. His grip was firm. calloused, the handshake of someone who'd spent a lifetime doing things that required hard work and harder choices. "Help me now," she said. "Help me finish what he started." "What do you need? Time, access, information about who was on his final deployment, who had opportunity, who benefited from his death." "I can get you that." Kane paused. "But Elena, if Brock Maddox is involved, he's dangerous. He's smart, well-connected, and he's got a reputation for being absolutely ruthless. You can't let him know you suspect him." "I wasn't planning to. And there's something else you should know." Kane glanced back toward the kennels. "Maddox requested transfer out of SEAL Team 3 within 2 weeks of your father's death. Cited personal reasons. But 6 months later, he was reassigned back with a promotion and a new position running the K9 program." Elena's mind raced through implications. "That's unusual. It's unheard of. Standard protocol is minimum 2 years before reassignment to the same unit, unless someone with serious pull intervened." "Someone like Captain Vance." "Exactly." They stood in silence, the weight of what they'd set in motion settling onto both their shoulders. This wasn't just about personal revenge anymore. If her father had discovered a smuggling operation run by Navy SEALs, if he'd been murdered to keep that secret, then the corruption went deeper than she'd imagined. Kane spoke again. "There's one more thing. If you're going to be here, if you're going to investigate while maintaining your cover as just another handler, you need to be good. Better than good. You need to be exceptional. I can handle the dogs. I know you can. I've read your file. Top marks at Lackland. Perfect scores on every certification. But these aren't Air Force working dogs or police K9s. These are SEAL combat dogs, the meanest, most dangerous animals the military produces, and they've all been trained by Maddox using methods your father would have hated." Kane started walking back toward the entrance. Elena followed. "This afternoon," he continued, "they're going to test you. It's tradition. New handler gets thrown into the deep end. See if they sink or swim. Usually it's harmless. But if Maddox suspects anything, if he wants to send a message..." He trailed off. "What kind of test, Shin?" "They'll probably stick you in with one of the difficult dogs. See how you handle it." Elena thought about Reaper. Those cold eyes, that scar, the 3 handlers sent to medical. "I can handle it." Kane looked at her. For just a moment, she saw her father looking back. The same expression Garrett Sterling would get before a mission. Determination mixed with resignation. The face of someone who knew the odds and chose to fight anyway. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I think you can." The night air was cool against her skin as Elena walked back to the barracks. Stars overhead scattered across the California sky like broken glass. Reaper would be waiting, loyal, patient, ready to protect her even though they'd only known each other for hours. That was the nature of dogs. Absolute commitment to their handlers, regardless of personal cost. Elena thought about her father, about the journal entry, about his final words to her written 3 days before men he'd trusted murdered him with a knife. "Finish what I started." She would, no matter what it cost, no matter who stood in her way, no matter how many powerful men tried to bury the truth. Her father had died believing in honor and duty and doing the right thing. She would honor that belief by exposing the men who'd killed him for it. Elena reached her barracks, unlocked the door. Reaper looked up immediately, tail wagging once. Mission complete. Handler returned safe. She knelt beside him, stroked his scarred head. "Tomorrow, boy. Tomorrow we start hunting wolves." The dog's tail thumped against the floor, a sound of agreement, of loyalty, of trust. Outside, the Pacific Ocean crashed against the shore in endless rhythm. Inside, Elena Sterling prepared for war. Not the kind fought with guns and grenades, but the kind fought with evidence and exposure and the relentless pursuit of justice. The kind that would either bring down a conspiracy or get her killed trying. She was ready for either outcome. The morning sun hadn't yet burned through the coastal fog when Elena arrived at Commander Brennan's office. 0800 hours, exactly on time. Reaper walked at perfect heel beside her, the dog's transformation from yesterday's aggressive predator to disciplined partner drawing stares from every operator they passed. Brennan's office occupied a corner of the second floor in the main administration building. Small, functional walls covered with photos from deployments and commendations from wars. the smell of coffee mixed with gun oil and old paper. The commander sat behind his desk reading something on his computer screen. He looked up as Elena knocked on the open door frame. "Sterling, come in. Close the door." She did. Reaper settled at her feet without being commanded. Brennan studied her for a long moment. His expression was difficult to read. Not hostile, but not entirely friendly either. The look of someone making calculations about trust and risk and how much truth to share. Finally, he spoke. "Your performance yesterday was exceptional. Too exceptional." He leaned forward. "You handled a dangerous animal with techniques that looked exactly like the ones your father used." Which raises some questions. Elena said nothing. Waited. "I'm going to say something, and I need you to listen carefully." Brennan's voice dropped. "Garrett Sterling was my friend. He saved my life in Kandahar, 2009. When he died, I pushed for a full investigation. I was told to let it go. Operational security. Need to know. All the bureaucratic bullshit that translates to shut up and follow orders." He paused. "I never bought the official story. IED explosion, Taliban ambush. Too convenient, too clean. But I'm just a commander. Captain Vance is Naval Special Warfare Command. He's got stars on his shoulder and senators on speed dial. I couldn't push without evidence." Brennan's eyes locked on hers. "You're here for a reason, and I don't think it's just to carry on your father's work. I think you're investigating his death." The silence stretched between them like a tripwire. Elena made a decision. "Yes, sir, I am." Brennan nodded slowly like he'd expected the answer. "What have you found?" "Evidence that my father discovered a smuggling operation. 5 corrupt SEALs, possibly including Senior Chief Maddox and Captain Vance. Radiological materials sold to hostile entities. $40 million over 15 years. Christ. Brennan ran a hand through his silver hair. "Can you prove it?" "Not yet, but I will. And when you do, I'm bringing them all down. Every single one." The commander studied her for another long moment. Then he turned to a filing cabinet behind his desk, pulled out a folder marked with security classifications, set it in front of her. "This is the after-action report from your father's final mission. Route Delta Patrol, October 15th, 2011. I've read it probably 50 times in the last 13 years. Something about it never sat right." Elena opened the folder. Inside were typed reports, hand-drawn maps, casualty assessments, and photos. She forced herself to look at them. The burned Humvee, the scattered debris, the body bags. "Look at the patrol roster," Brennan said. "Who was assigned to your father's vehicle?" Elena scanned the list. Her blood went cold. "Brock Maddox requested assignment to Garrett's vehicle 12 hours before the mission. That's noted here. See, usually handlers ride with their own dogs. But Maddox said his canine was injured, asked to ride with Garrett instead. And the route, selected personally by Captain Vance. Also unusual. Route selection is typically left to squad leaders on the ground. But Vance, over road-based standard protocol, insisted on Route Delta specifically." Elena's hands trembled as she held the papers. "They set him up. That's what I've suspected for 13 years. But suspicion isn't evidence. And without evidence, Vance is untouchable." Brennan closed the folder. "We've got a mission. Mexico border 3 days from now. Cartel interdiction operation. Intel suggests major smuggling activity. Cocaine weapons, high-value targets." He paused. "Maddox volunteered to lead Bravo team. That's suspicious. I want you on Alpha team as primary canine handler. We observe his actions, document everything. If he makes a move, if he tries anything, we'll be ready." Elena felt her pulse quicken. "You're risking your career, sir." "Garrett Sterling saved my life. I owe him a debt I can never repay. But maybe I can give his daughter a chance to get justice." A knock on the door interrupted them. Thaddeus Kane entered without waiting for permission. He looked at Brennan, then at Elena, then at the folder on the desk. "Nash," Kane said, "we need to talk." Brennan gestured to a chair. Kane sat his old injuries, making the movement careful. "Elena showed me Garrett's journals last night," Kane said. "All of them. She's been decoding them for 6 years. What did they say?" "Everything. Names, dates, transactions." Garrett documented a 16-year smuggling operation, started small with captured weapons, escalated to radiological materials. $40 million in offshore accounts. 5 SEALs running the whole thing with Captain Vance at the top. Brennan's expression went dark. Who are the other 3, besides Maddox and Vance? Kane pulled out a notebook. Elena recognized her own handwriting. Based on Garrett's cipher, we think Blake Rutherford, Lieutenant Commander, currently at SEAL Team 5. Derek Hollis, Chief Warrant Officer, Special Operations. And the 5th one we're still working on. Initials WS. Wyatt Shepard, Brennan said immediately. Petty Officer First Class. Was on Garrett's final deployment. Transferred to Training Command 6 months after Garrett died. The pieces were falling into place. A conspiracy that had operated for 16 years. 7 people murdered to protect it. Terrorists funded with American military materials. And at the center of it all, decorated veterans who decided that their service entitled them to betray everything they'd sworn to protect. Elena spoke. We need more than journals and suspicions. We need documented evidence. Financial records, communication logs, physical proof of smuggling. The Mexico operation, Kane said. If Maddox is running product through cartel channels, this mission gives us a chance to catch him in the act. Brennan nodded. I'll brief NCIS. Agent Rebecca Hawthorne is solid. Worked anti-corruption cases for 20 years. She'll know how to handle this without tipping our hand. He looked at Elena. Mission brief is tomorrow at 0600. Get some rest. And Sterling, be careful, Maddox is dangerous. If he even suspects what you're doing here, he won't hesitate. I understand, sir. Do you? Because your father underestimated them, and they put a knife in his chest. The words hit like a physical blow, but Elena kept her face neutral. I won't make that mistake. She left the office with Reaper. Kane followed her into the hallway. You did good in there, he said quietly. Brennan's a good man, one of the few who can't be bought. But Elena, you need to understand something. He stopped walking, turned to face her. This operation in Mexico, it's going to be dangerous. Not just the usual mission risk. If Maddox suspects we're onto him, he'll try to eliminate the threat. That means you. He's already killed 7 people. An 8th won't cost him any sleep. Then I'll have to make sure he doesn't get the chance. Kane's expression showed both pride and fear. Your father said the same thing right before they murdered him. The afternoon brought a discovery that made Elena's blood run cold. She'd returned to the kennels to work with Reaper, building on yesterday's breakthrough. The dog was responding beautifully to positive reinforcement training. Each session revealed more of the intelligent, loyal animal underneath the trauma and aggression. But when she arrived at Reaper's kennel, she found Trent Aldrich standing outside. His face was pale. His hands shook. Blood stained his uniform. What happened? Elena demanded. Luna! His voice broke. Someone got to her, poisoned her food. She started seizing 20 minutes ago. Elena pushed past him into the medical bay. Found the base veterinarian Doc Keller kneeling beside a Belgian Malinois. His hands were covered in blood. His expression was devastated. She's gone, Doc said quietly. Died 3 minutes ago. Tried everything, but whatever they used worked too fast. Elena's knees nearly buckled. Luna, one of the program's best dogs. Smart, loyal, with 3 successful deployments under her collar. And Maddox's former partner before he'd switched to a younger dog 2 years ago. Who did this? Don't know for certain, but it was deliberate. Someone put something in her food bowl. Had to happen last night while we were all off base. Kane appeared in the doorway, took one look at the scene and understood immediately. Vance, he said, sending a message, showing he can get to us anytime he wants. Rage flooded through Elena, but she forced it down, locked it away, channeled it into cold determination. Check every other dog, she ordered. Every food bowl, every water dish. I want guards posted 24/7. Nobody gets near these animals without clearance from me or Doc Keller personally. Already done, Doc confirmed. 2 loyal operators standing watch. But Elena, this is just the beginning. Vance is escalating. Good. Elena's voice was flat, hard. Let him escalate. It won't matter. She knelt beside Luna's body, placed a hand on still warm fur. I'm sorry, girl. You deserve better. Reaper approached slowly, sniffed his fallen packmate. A low whine emerged from his throat, grief in its purest form. Elena led him away. The dog needed to process the loss, but not here. Not surrounded by the smell of death and the knowledge that humans had done this. That evening, as Elena prepared for the Mexico mission, her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her accept the call. Silence on the other end, then breathing. Finally a voice. Chief Petty Officer Sterling. The voice was cultured, educated, carrying the kind of authority that came from decades at the top of military hierarchy. My name is Captain Richmond Vance. I believe we need to talk. Elena's hand tightened on the phone. She activated the recording app she'd installed 2 days ago. I have nothing to say to you. Even if I can offer information about your father's death, about exactly what happened in Kandahar. Her breath caught. You're lying. Meet me after your Mexico operation. Building 47 in the warehouse district. 2200 hours. Come alone and I'll show you everything. It's a trap. Of course it is, but you'll come anyway because you need the truth more than you need safety. Just like your father. A pause when he died well, if that's any comfort. Fought until the very end, but he was always going to lose. He was one man against a system designed to protect itself. I'm not alone. You have Maddox who will say anything to avoid federal prison. You have an old man who can barely walk. And you have a vendetta that's about to get you killed. Vance's tone shifted, became almost gentle. I'm offering you what I never offered Garrett. A chance to walk away. Take the deal. Forget about your father's death. Move on with your life. Like you buried my father. Exactly like that. It's the smart play. The safe play. Elena's jaw clenched. My father didn't take the safe play. And now he's dead. Ask yourself, is that really the legacy you want to honor, dying for nothing, accomplishing nothing, leaving nothing behind but grief? The line went dead. Elena sat in darkness, phone still pressed to her ear, mind racing through implications and possibilities. Kane appeared in her doorway minutes later. She didn't question how he knew something was wrong. They'd developed that kind of connection over the past 2 days. The bond of people who'd fought together, bled together, trusted each other absolutely. What happened? He asked. Vance called. He wants to meet. Says he has footage of my father's death. It's definitely a trap. I know. You're going anyway. I have to, if there's even a chance he's telling the truth, if there's footage that shows what really happened. Kane sat beside her. Listen to me. Garrett was my brother. I loved him like family. But he made a mistake. He confronted the enemy before he had enough support, enough backup, enough evidence to make it stick. And they killed him for it. So what do I do? Just let Vance walk, let him keep operating. No, we be smarter than your father. We build the case properly. We bring in Brennan Hawthorne, everyone we trust. And we turn Vance's trap into ours. Lena looked at him, saw the scars and the gray hair and the limp that never quite went away. Saw 40 years of service and sacrifice and hard-won wisdom. How? We let you meet him, but not alone. We wire you for audio and video. We position tactical teams in concealment. We let Vance talk, confess, incriminate himself. And then we take him down with overwhelming force and incontrovertible evidence. Brennan will never approve an operation like that. Then we ask for forgiveness instead of permission. Worst case, we all end up court-martialed. Best case, we end a 16-year conspiracy and prevent terrorist attacks. Kane managed a tired smile. Personally, I can live with either outcome. They planned through the night, every detail, every contingency, every possible way the meeting could go wrong, and how to respond. By dawn, they had a plan, risky, dangerous, could easily end with people dead, but it was the only chance they had. The Mexico border operation launched at 0230 hours. Elena moved through the desert with Reaper at her side, the dog's breathing synchronized with her own. 48 degrees Fahrenheit now that the sun had set, cold enough that her breath misted in the air, visible even through her PVS 31 night vision goggles. The enhanced optics painted everything in shades of green and black, turning the landscape into something alien and hostile. 3 miles north of the border, desolate wasteland that stretched in every direction. The kind of place where smugglers operated and people disappeared without questions being asked. Reaper stopped suddenly, his ears rotated forward, nose twitching as he processed scents invisible to human perception. Contact. Elena dropped to one knee behind a rock formation, one hand resting on the dog's shoulders. Through her night vision, she could see nothing yet, but Reaper knew. 8 years of training compressed into 85 pounds of muscle and instinct. The dog had never been wrong. Alpha 6, this is Alpha 2. She kept her voice to a whisper. The throat mic picked up the sub-vocalization. Reaper has scent trail, approximately 2 hours old. Multiple individuals heading northwest toward target building. Commander Brennan's voice crackled through her earpiece. Copy Alpha 2. Hold position and observe. Do not advance until we have full team coordination. Roger. Elena settled into her position, scanned the terrain ahead. The abandoned mining structure sat half a mile distant. A relic from California's gold rush days now repurposed for activities far less legal than prospecting. Intelligence suggested tonight's meeting involved major cartel operations. 500 kilograms of cocaine plus unknown high-value cargo. What the intelligence hadn't mentioned was why Brock Maddox had volunteered to lead Bravo team for this operation, or why he'd specifically requested that Elena be assigned to Alpha team instead of working under his direct command. Red flags, all of them. Reaper's muscles tensed a fraction before Elena's conscious mind registered the sound. Vehicle engines, distant but approaching. Alpha 6 contact. 3 vehicles inbound from south. Heavy class. Approaching grid reference 729er. Visual confirmation. Elena raised her night vision device to maximum magnification. 3 Suburbans materialized from the darkness, moving in tactical formation. Not the beat-up trucks typical of cartel operations. These were new, armored, moving with military precision. Confirmed, black Suburban's armored configuration, military pattern movement. Sir, this doesn't match our intelligence profile. A pause on the radio. When Brennan spoke again, his voice carried tension. All teams' weapons hold. Something's wrong here. The vehicle stopped near the mining structure. Doors opened with synchronized precision. Personnel dismounted. 8 individuals, all moving with the kind of tactical efficiency that came from military training. Even at this distance, their silhouettes screamed operator, not cartel. Sicario, Elena whispered to Reaper. The dog growled softly. Not his aggressive sound, his warning sound. The one that meant danger of a different kind than expected. Good boy, she whispered, fingers working through the fur behind his ears. I see them too. She watched the operators move to the rear vehicles and begin unloading cargo. Metal cases, approximately 2 feet long, 18 inches wide, heavy enough that it took 2 men to carry each one. Elena zoomed her optics, trying to get better resolution. The cases had stenciled markings on their sides, faded, barely visible even with night vision enhancement. Then she saw it clearly. 3 triangles arranged in a trefoil pattern. The international symbol were radioactive materials. Her heart rate spiked. Alpha 6, the cargo isn't drugs. Repeat, I'm seeing radiation hazard symbols on the cases. This is not a standard cartel operation. Say again, Alpha 2. The cases have radiation warnings, sir. Military transport containers. These aren't smugglers. These are operators moving weapons-grade materials. A new voice cut into the radio net. Senior Chief Brock Maddox, commanding Bravo team, from his overwatch position 300 yards east. Alpha 6, Bravo 1 confirms Alpha 2's assessment. I have visual on the containers. Those are radiological transport cases. Military specification. How the hell did cartel smugglers get radioactive materials? Brennan's confusion was obvious in his voice. All teams maintain observation. Do not engage without my direct order. But before anyone could respond, the desert night exploded. Gunfire shattered the silence. Muzzle flashes strobed in the darkness as a third force appeared. Actual cartel sicarios, 15 or 20 of them, ambushed the group near the mining structure. The distinctive chatter of AK-47s mixed with the sharper reports of M4 carbines returning fire. Chaos erupted. Bodies moved in the darkness, seeking cover, returning fire, dying. All teams, all teams. Brennan's voice cut through chaos. We have active engagement. Multiple hostiles. Alpha and Bravo teams move to contain. Charlie team establish perimeter. Rules of engagement are weapons free if fired upon. Priority objective, secure those containers before they disappear. Elena was already moving before the order finished. Reaper matched her stride perfectly, both of them flowing across broken ground like shadows. Her training took over. The countless hours at Lackland, the endless repetitions, the muscle memory built through sweat and discipline, and her father's voice in her head. Stay low, move fast, trust your dog. She reached a position 40 yards from the firefight, dropped prone behind a low ridge. Reaper pressed against her side, solid and warm and absolutely steady despite the chaos erupting ahead. Through the strobing muzzle flashes, she tracked 3 operators struggling with containers, trying to evacuate toward their vehicles while their teammates provided covering fire. Alpha 2 has eyes on package, 3 individuals attempting exfiltration with containers, heading northeast. Intercept if possible, Brennan ordered, but do not engage alone. Wait for backup. Footsteps approach from her right. Lena spun, weapon rising, finger taking slack on the trigger. Thaddeus Kane materialized from darkness. 68 years old, but moving with the fluid precision of someone who'd spent 40 years in combat. He carried his M4 like it was an extension of his body. I'm with you, he said simply. They moved together toward the mining structure entrance. The 3 men with containers had already disappeared inside, an old shaft leading underground. Elena gestured to Reaper. The dog's nose went to work immediately, tracking scents through gunpowder residue and dust. The shaft descended at a steep angle. Emergency lighting recently installed, not original to the mine, cast everything in harsh shadows. Metal grating rang under their boots. Somewhere ahead, voices echoed back, distorted by stone walls and distance. Kane held up a fist. Stop. Listen. The voices grew clearer. Should have been clear. Someone talked. Doesn't matter now. Get the package to the secondary site. Vance will handle cleanup. Vance, Captain Richmond. Vance, the name from her father's journal. Elena looked at Kane, saw a recognition flash in his eyes. Understanding, confirmation that the conspiracy was real was happening right now. They moved forward, weapons up, Reaper leading but silent as death itself. The shaft opened into a larger chamber, an old equipment room now repurposed as a staging area. Industrial shelving lined the walls. The 3 men were loading containers onto a hidden ATV. Elena stepped into the chamber, M18 pistol extended in a 2-handed grip. Federal agents, don't move. It was a bluff. She wasn't federal anything, but the psychology worked on instinct. Most people froze when confronted with authority and weapons. 2 of the 3 operators started to comply, hands rising slowly. Professional enough to recognize when they were outgunned. The 3rd man reached for his sidearm. Reaper was faster. The Belgian Malinois launched across 15 feet of space in less than 2 seconds. 85 pounds of trained fury hit the gunman's center mass. The impact drove him backward. Reaper's jaws clamped onto his weapon arm just below the elbow. Bone crunched audibly. The man screamed, his pistol clattered across stone floors, skittering into shadows. Reaper, hold, Elena commanded. The dog maintained his grip but didn't tear. Perfect control, holding the threat immobile without causing unnecessary damage beyond the initial takedown. Kane moved forward with cable ties ready. On your knees, hand behind your heads, now. The 2 uninjured operators complied. They were professionals, knew when they were beaten, knew that resistance would only make things worse. Elena kept her weapon trained on them while Kane secured their wrists with zip ties, cinching them tight enough to prevent escape, but not tight enough to cut off circulation. Who do you work for? Elena demanded. Silence. Both men stared straight ahead, expressions blank. They'd been trained to resist interrogation, probably at the same schools where Navy SEALs learned similar techniques. Those containers are radiological materials, weapons grade. You're transporting materials that could be used in terrorist attacks. That's federal prison for life. No parole, unless you cooperate. Still nothing. These weren't amateurs caught in over their heads. These were operators who knew exactly what they were doing and had accepted the consequences before they started. Elena tried a different approach. My father discovered this operation 13 years ago. Master Chief Garrett Sterling. You know that name? A flicker in one man's eyes. Recognition. Fear, maybe. He threatened to expose you, so you killed him. Made it look like an IED. but he left evidence. Journals, documentation, names. She paused, letting it sink in. I know about the 5 SEALs running this operation. I know about Captain Vance. I know about Senior Chief Maddox. And I know about you. The silence that followed felt heavy enough to crush stone. Then a voice spoke from the shadows at the chamber's far end. They work for me. Senior Chief Brock Maddox stepped into the light, his M4 rifle pointed directly at Elena's chest. Behind him, 2 more operators emerged from concealment. All 3 had clear lines of fire. Time seemed to slow. Onina's mind processed 1,000 details in the space between heartbeats. Maddox's positioning, tactically perfect. Clear shot, no cover for her. His weapon selector switch, visible even from this distance, set to full auto. His expression, cold calculation, no hesitation, no doubt. The expression of someone who'd made this decision before and wouldn't lose sleep over making it again. Lower your weapon, Sterling, Maddox said calmly, professional, like he was conducting a training exercise instead of preparing to commit murder. Or I put 3 rounds in your chest before you can blink. Elena didn't move, didn't lower her weapon. You killed my father. Your father was a liability. Maddox's tone held no remorse, just flat pragmatism. Smart man, exceptional handler, but too much integrity for his own good. He found out about our operation, threatened to expose us, destroy everything we'd built over 16 years. A pause. So we eliminated the problem. You murdered him. We removed a threat to operational security. There's a difference. Maddox shook his head. This operation has generated over $40 million since 2009. Supplied materials to clients who pay in cash, no questions asked. Your father wanted to throw all that away over abstract principles like honor and duty. His weapon never wavered. He gave us no choice. There's always a choice. Not in our world. In our world, you're either predator or prey. Your father chose wrong. Maddox's eyes were flat, dead. And now you're standing exactly where he stood, making the same mistakes, about to learn the same lessons. Elena's finger rested on her trigger. She could shoot, could try. Maddox was 15 feet away, 3 rounds center mass, but his 2 backup operators would kill her and Kane before their bodies hit the ground. Tactical mathematics, unwinnable odds. How did it happen? Elena asked, buying time, looking for options. My father's death, I want to know exactly how you did it. Maddox considered for a moment, then shrugged. Why not? You'll be dead in 5 minutes anyway. He shifted his weight, the rifle never moving from its aim point on her chest. Derek Hollis planted the IED on your father's patrol route. I provided the intelligence. Told Garrett his team needed to sweep Route Delta. Said there was high-value intelligence about Taliban movements. He trusted me, believed me. Never suspected that his commanding officer would send him straight into a kill zone. Elena's hands trembled with rage. The IED went off, but my father survived the initial blast. He did, thrown clear, broken legs, burns, but alive. Conscious, aware. Maddox's expression showed nothing. No remorse, no guilt, just the flat recitation of facts. So Derek finished the job, put a knife in his chest, made sure there were no survivors who could ask inconvenient questions. Then we called it in. Taliban ambush, IED explosion, catastrophic casualties, case closed. The words hung in the air like poison. Elena's father hadn't died instantly in an explosion. He'd survived. Had time to realize he'd been betrayed. Had time to feel the blade that ended his life. You son of a bitch. I'm a realist. Your father was an idealist. That's why he's dead, and I'm about to retire with $20 million in offshore accounts. Maddox's weapon steadied. Now put the gun down, or I kill all 3 of you right here. Movement exploded from multiple directions simultaneously. Kane, despite his age and that permanent limp from Panama, moved with muscle memory built over 4 decades of combat. He lunged sideways toward Maddox, bringing his M4 up, even as Maddox's rifle tracked to follow. Elena dropped and rolled left. Her body remembering training drills practiced 10,000 times. She came up firing. 2 shots at the nearest backup operator. Both rounds hit center mass. The man went down hard. Reaper, loyal and brilliant and perfectly trained, launched himself at the second backup operator without being commanded. Pure instinct. Pure pack loyalty. 85 pounds of Belgian Malinois hit the man before he could fire, jaws clamping onto his gun arm, dragging him to the ground. Gunfire erupted in the enclosed space. The sound was deafening. Muzzle flashes strobed like lightning. Cordite smoke filled the air, making it hard to breathe, hard to see, hard to think through the chaos. Elena fired again at the operator she'd hit, made sure he stayed down, then pivoted toward Maddox. But Kane was in the way, the two men grappling for control of their weapons, struggling for dominance, neither willing to give ground. Maddox broke free suddenly, swung his rifle like a club. The stock caught Kane across the side of his head with a sickening crack. The older man staggered, blood streaming from his temple, eyes unfocused. "No," Elena shouted. She moved forward, weapon tracking Maddox. But the senior chief was already moving. He kicked Kane's rifle away, then dropped his own weapon and pulled a knife. A 7-inch K-bar, the blade blackened to prevent reflection. The same knife he'd used to kill Garrett Sterling. "I gutted your father with this blade," Maddox said, breathing hard but still controlled. Looked him in the eyes while he bled out. He kept talking about honor, about duty, about how we'd betrayed everything the uniform stands for. He smiled, cruel, right up until I twisted the knife and ended his self-righteous sermon. Rage flooded through Elena like liquid fire, white hot, all-consuming. She could shoot him, should shoot him. One trigger pull and Brock Maddox would be dead. But she needed him alive, needed his testimony, needed him to expose Vance and the others. Justice required sacrifice. Her father had taught her that. "On your knees," Elena said, voice steady despite the fury burning in her chest. "Hands behind your head. You're under arrest." Maddox laughed, actually laughed. "You don't have the stones to shoot me, just like Garrett didn't have the stones when I gave him the chance to walk away." The smile widened. He kept talking about doing the right thing, right up until I stuck this blade between his ribs and watched the light go out of his eyes. He moved fast, professional, the attack of someone who'd spent 30 years learning to kill efficiently with blades in hands when guns weren't an option. The K-bar came up in a gutting stroke, designed to open Elena from groin to sternum. She twisted, the blade missing by inches, feeling the wind of its passage across her stomach. Elena brought her pistol up, but Maddox was inside her reach now, too close for firearms to be effective. His free hand caught her wrist, forcing the weapon aside with brutal strength. She was fast, well-trained, athletic from years of handler work. But Maddox had 60 pounds on her and 3 decades of experience in hand-to-hand combat. He forced her backward. Her shoulders hit the stone wall. The impact drove air from her lungs in an explosive gasp. The knife came up again, blade aimed at her throat. Then Reaper hit Maddox from behind. The dog's jaws clamped onto Maddox's knife arm at the elbow joint. Bone crunched audibly. Maddox screamed, a sound of pure agony that echoed off stone walls. The KBR fell from nerveless fingers, clattering across the floor. Elena didn't hesitate. She brought her knee up into Maddox's groin. Once, twice. The senior chief doubled over, gasping, the fight draining out of him. She stepped back, raised her pistol, fired once. The round hit Maddox's left shoulder, precisely placed to incapacitate without killing. He collapsed, clutching the wound, blood seeping between his fingers. "Reaper out," Elena commanded. The dog released immediately, returning to heel position, muzzle stained red. Kane was on his feet now, bleeding from his head wound but functional. He collected the fallen weapons, securing them away from the prisoners. Elena stood over Maddox, weapon pointed at his face. "Senior Chief Brock Maddox, you're under arrest for treason, smuggling of controlled materials, conspiracy to commit murder, and the murder of Master Chief Garrett Sterling." She paused. "You have the right to remain silent." "Save it," Maddox interrupted, laughing wetly. Blood flecked his lips. "You think catching me changes anything? Vance knows you're here, knows what you're doing. He's got contingencies for contingencies, lawyers, connections, political cover all the way to the Pentagon." His eyes met hers. "You're not taking down the operation. You're just signing your own death warrant." Then we'll see who dies first. Not me, I'm too valuable. I'll cut a deal. Trade testimony for immunity. Walk away from this while you end up in a body bag like your father. Lena's finger tightened on the trigger. 1 pound of pressure. That's all it would take. One small movement and Brock Maddox would be dead. Would never hurt anyone again. Would never make another deal or walk free. Kane's hand rested gently on her shoulder. Don't. He's not worth it, and we need him alive. She took a shuddering breath, lowered the weapon. While Kane secured Maddox with heavy-duty zip ties, Elena checked on Reaper. The dog had minor lacerations on his muzzle from the fight, but nothing serious. She ran her hands over his body, checking for injuries, finding only bruises and stress. Good boy, she whispered. Such a good boy. You saved my life. Reaper licked her face, tail wagging despite the violence he'd just participated in, ready to go again if needed. That was the nature of working dogs. Absolute commitment to their handlers, regardless of personal cost. They hauled Maddox back to the surface, half dragging him when he couldn't walk on his own. The senior chief left a blood trail across stone and metal grating. Neither Elena nor Kane felt particularly concerned about his comfort. Commander Brennan met them at the mine entrance. His expression cycled through shock, fury, and grim satisfaction as he took in the scene. Maddox wounded and restrained, blood-stained and defeated. Senior Chief Maddox, Brennan said quietly, I've known you for 15 years, served with you, trusted you, and you've been a traitor the entire time. Save the moral posturing, Nash. You'd have done the same thing if you'd had the balls. We all know what we're worth to the Navy. This operation just made sure we got paid what we deserved. You murdered Garrett Sterling. I did what was necessary. He would have destroyed everything, cost us millions. So yes, I killed him, and I'd do it again. Brennan's jaw clenched so hard Elena heard teeth grinding. For a moment, she thought the commander might shoot Maddox himself, but discipline held, training held. Get him in the truck, Brennan ordered. Treat his wounds enough to keep him alive. Then cuff him to the frame. If he tries anything, shoot him in the other shoulder. 2 operators moved forward, loaded Maddox into a tactical vehicle with unnecessary roughness. Not gentle, but effective. You're all dead, Maddox said as they secured his. Vance will hunt you down, everyone you care about, everyone who helps you. He's done it before. He'll do it again. Let him try, Elena said coldly. They drove back to Naval Amphibious Base Coronado as dawn painted the sky in shades of orange and red. Combat colors, the colors of battles fought and blood spilled and justice pursued at great personal cost. At the base, NCIS was already waiting. Agent Rebecca Hawthorne, 42 years old, steel gray eyes, the kind of competence that came from decades investigating cases that would break lesser people. She took custody of Maddox immediately. Chief Petty Officer Sterling, Hawthorne said, I've read the preliminary reports. This is bigger than anyone realized. It's been running for 16 years, 5 corrupt SEALs, $40 million. Radioactive materials sold to terrorist organizations. And my father was murdered because he tried to stop it. I'm sorry for your father and for the fact that our system let this happen for so long. Hawthorne looked at Maddox, now secured in the NCIS vehicle. But we're going to make it right, I promise you that. Over the next 6 hours, Maddox talked. Not immediately, not willingly, but faced with overwhelming evidence, the containers, the financial records, Elena's testimony, the body camera footage from the mine shaft, he made the calculation that survival required cooperation. He confirmed everything, the smuggling operation, the 5 conspirators, the murder of Garrett Sterling, and most importantly, he named Captain Richmond Vance as the mastermind. Vance has been running this for 16 years, Maddox said during his formal statement. He's got files on everyone, dirt on admirals, senators, defense contractors. He's protected because he knows where everybody's buried, literally and figuratively. Hawthorne leaned forward. You arrest him, and he'll burn the whole military establishment to the ground before he goes down. Then we make sure the case is airtight, Hawthorne said. So good that even his connections can't save him. That evening, Elena returned to her quarters, exhausted but unable to sleep. Reaper settled in his usual spot, pressed against her bed, providing comfort through simple presence. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her accept the call. Chief Petty Officer Sterling. The voice was cultured, educated, carrying the kind of authority that came from decades at the top of military hierarchy. My name is Captain Richmond Vance. I believe we need to talk. Elena's hand tightened on the phone. I have nothing to say to you. Even if I can offer information about your father's death, about exactly what happened in Kandahar, I have footage, Elena, video from the operation. Would you like to see how Garrett Sterling really died? Her breath caught. You're lying. Meet me tomorrow night. Naval Amphibious Base Coronado Building 47 in the Warehouse District. 2200 hours. Come alone and I'll show you everything. It's a trap. Of course it is. But you'll come anyway, because you need the truth more than you need safety, just like your father. A pause. He died well, if that's any comfort. Fought until the very end, but he was always going to lose. He was one man against a system designed to protect itself. I'm not alone. You have Maddox who will say anything to avoid federal prison. You have an old man who can barely walk. And you have a vendetta that's about to get you killed. Vance's tone shifted, became almost gentle. I'm offering you what I never offered Garrett, a chance to walk away. Take the deal. Forget about your father's death. Move on with your life. Like you buried my father. Exactly like that. It's the smart play, the safe play. Elena's jaw clenched. My father didn't take the safe play, and now he's dead. Ask yourself, is that really the legacy you want to honor, dying for nothing, accomplishing nothing, leaving nothing behind but grief? The line went dead. Elena sat in darkness, phone still pressed to her ear, mind racing through implications and possibilities. Kane appeared in her doorway minutes later. She didn't question how he knew something was wrong. What happened? He asked. Vance called. He wants to meet, says he has footage of my father's death. It's definitely a trap. I know. You're going anyway. I have to, if there's even a chance he's telling the truth, if there's footage that shows what really happened. She trailed off. Kane sat beside her. Listen to me. Garrett was my brother. I loved him like family. But he made a mistake. He confronted the enemy before he had enough support, enough backup, enough evidence to make it stick. And they killed him for it. So what do? We be smarter than your father. We build the case properly. We bring in Brennan Hawthorne, everyone we trust, and we turn Vance's trap into ours. Elena looked at him, saw the scars and the gray hair and the limp that never quite went away, saw 40 years of service and sacrifice and hard-won wisdom. How? We let you meet him, but not alone. We wire you for audio and video. We position tactical teams in concealment. We let Vance talk, confess, incriminate himself. And then we take him down with overwhelming force and incontrovertible evidence. They planned through the night, every detail, every contingency, every possible way the meeting could go wrong and how to respond. By dawn, they had a plan. Risky, dangerous, could easily end with people dead. But it was the only chance they had. The warehouse loomed against the night sky like a monument to forgotten wars. Building 47 occupied the southeastern corner of Naval Amphibious Base Coronado, a massive steel structure erected during the Cold War when America believed the Soviets might invade California. Now it housed nothing but dust and shadows and the ghosts of conflicts that the current generation barely remembered. Elena stood outside the main entrance at 21:45 hours, 15 minutes early. Reaper pressed against her left leg, radiating warmth and solidarity. The dog's ears rotated constantly, processing sounds beyond human range, analyzing the environment for threats. She wore civilian clothes, dark jeans, black jacket, boots. The jacket concealed the button camera that transmitted everything to Agent Hawthorne and Commander Brennan 300 yards away in a tactical command vehicle. A throat mic hidden under her collar provided two-way communication. And strapped to her right ankle, a Glock 19. Insurance, last resort. The difference between survival and death. Alpha 6, Alpha 2 in position, she said quietly. Building appears secure. No visible sentries. Brennan's voice crackled through her earpiece. Copy. Overwatch confirms 4 heat signatures inside main bay. No movement in perimeter areas. Understood, Sterling, Hawthorne said. Last chance to abort. We can find another way. There is no other way. Not in time. Then remember, get him talking. Get him to confess on camera. Don't engage physically unless absolutely necessary. We need him alive and his testimony admissible in court. Roger. Elena approached the entrance. The door wasn't locked. Vance was confident enough not to bother. It swung open with a shriek of protesting hinges, revealing darkness broken only by scattered emergency lighting. She stepped inside. Reaper followed, his nails clicking on concrete, the sound echoing in vast emptiness. The main base stretched before them, 50 yards deep, 30 wide, ceiling 2 stories overhead. Crates and equipment lockers lined the walls, creating pools of shadow within deeper darkness. The air smelled of rust and oil, and something else. Ozone, the electric charge of tension before storms. 4 figures stood in the center of the space under a single overhead fixture. Captain Richmond Vance occupied the middle position. 68 years old, but standing with the rigid posture of someone who'd spent 50 years in uniform. Silver hair cut military short, tactical vest over his uniform, chest full of ribbons. Grenada, Panama, Desert Storm, Afghanistan, Iraq. Decades of service compressed into colored cloth. To his left, Lieutenant Commander Blake Rutherford, early 50s, built like someone who'd maintained peak physical condition through sheer determination and discipline. To Vance's right, Chief Warrant Officer Derek Hollis and Petty Officer First Class Wyatt Shepard completed the quartet. All 4 armed, all 4 watching Elena approach with the cold calculation of apex predators evaluating prey. She stopped 20 feet away. Reaper sat without being commanded, alert but not aggressive. "Captain Vance," Elena said. Her voice echoed in the cavernous space. "Chief Petty Officer Sterling, thank you for meeting me. Punctual. I appreciate that quality." Vance's tone was conversational, almost pleasant. "You came alone as requested. Smart decision." "I came for answers. You said you have footage of my father's death." "I do. But first let's establish understanding." Vance gestured to his 3 companions. "You're outnumbered and outgunned. Your dog, while impressive, can't take down 4 armed operators before we drop you. So let's keep this civilized." "Agreed, as long as you keep your end of the bargain." "Of course." Vance studied her face. "You're wondering why I'm showing you this. Why not just eliminate you like the others?" He smiled, cold. "Because I want you to understand that resistance is futile, Sanem. Your father saw this footage concept before he died. I showed him what would happen if he didn't comply. He still refused. I won't make the mistake of underestimating a Sterling twice." He tapped the tablet. "After you watch this, you'll have a choice. Walk away or end up in the next video I show to someone else." The screen showed grainy night vision footage. Vehicle-mounted camera. Timestamp October 15, 2011. Kandahar Province, Afghanistan. Elena's chest tightened as she recognized her father in the passenger seat, Master Chief Garrett Sterling, 41 years old, jaw set with determination, eyes scanning terrain through the Humvee's window. In the back seat, a German Shepherd, Sergeant, his canine partner. The footage continued, the Humvee moving through darkness, radio chatter, coordinates, the mechanical rhythm of routine patrol. Then Sergeant started barking, urgent, frantic, warning his handler of danger invisible to human senses. Garrett's hand went to his throat mic. Contact right. Possible IED. The explosion was deafening even through the tablet speakers. The camera angle went wild, spinning, showing ground and sky and fire. When it stabilized, the Humvee was destroyed. Flames consumed twisted metal, bodies visible through the wreckage. But what made Elena's blood freeze was what came next. A figure approached the burning vehicle. Combat fatigues, tactical vest, moving with purpose. He carried a rifle and something else, something smaller. The figure knelt beside the wreckage, reached inside, pulled out Garrett Sterling. Her father was alive, badly injured, legs clearly broken, face covered in blood, uniform burned, but alive, conscious, aware. The figure spoke. Audio was garbled by fire and wind, but fragments came through. "Shouldn't have. Garrett, orders from Vance. Your daughter, same thing. Then the figure pressed something against Garrett's chest. A blade, the same K-bar knife that Brock Maddox had carried in the mineshaft. Garrett Sterling's body went rigid. His mouth opened, but no sound emerged. Blood bloomed across his uniform. The light faded from his eyes. The footage ended. Elena stood frozen. Tears streamed down her face without permission. Her hands shook. Her chest felt like someone had reached inside and crushed her heart to pulp. That's Derek Hollis, Vance said quietly, nodding toward the man on his right. He was driving the vehicle behind your father's Humvee. When our planted IED went off, Derek made sure there were no survivors. Clean, professional, necessary. Derek Hollis showed no emotion, just watched Elena with flat, dead eyes. You murdered him, Elena whispered. Not Taliban. You. We eliminated a threat to operational security, Vance corrected. Your father discovered our operation, threatened to expose us, destroy 16 years of work, cost us millions of dollars. We gave him opportunities to walk away, to accept reality and keep quiet. He refused, so we removed him from the equation. He was your teammate, your brother in arms. He was a liability, and in our business, liabilities get people killed, sometimes the liability themselves. Vance pocketed the tablet. I'm showing you this for a reason. I want you to understand exactly what you're up against. We've been running this operation for 16 years without detection, without consequences. We have resources, connections, protection at every level, and we've eliminated everyone who threatened us. He paused. Your father, other SEALs, CIA analysts, 7 people total over 16 years. All of them made the same mistake your father made. They believed principles mattered more than survival. Vance took a step forward. Now you're standing where they stood, walking the same path, about to learn the same lesson. Elena's hand moved fractionally toward her jacket, where the Glock waited, but 4 weapons tracked her movement instantly. I wouldn't, Vance said softly. You're fast, well-trained, but not fast enough to draw and fire before my men put a dozen rounds in you. Then why am I still alive? Why this meeting instead of just killing me? Because unlike your father, you strike me as intelligent enough to recognize a losing position when you see one. Vance's expression was almost sympathetic. You've seen what we're capable of. You know the resources we command. You know that continuing this vendetta will only end one way, with you in a body bag like Garrett. He paused. I'm offering you what I never offered your father, a choice. Transfer to a different base. Go back to training dogs. Forget about investigating his death. Live your life. Another pause. It's not weakness to choose survival over principle. It's wisdom. Elena looked at each of them. Vance with his ribbons and his confidence. Rutherford with his muscled readiness. Hollis with his dead eyes. Shepard with his nervous energy. 4 men who'd betrayed everything the uniform represented. 4 men who'd murdered her father for money. 4 men who thought they'd won. I have a counter-offer, Elena said clearly. You confess, all of you, right now. Detail every operation, every shipment, every person you've killed. And maybe the judge shows mercy. Vance laughed. The sound echoed through the warehouse, harsh and genuine. You think you have leverage. You think anyone will believe your accusations against decorated combat veterans. I think Senior Chief Brock Maddox is in federal custody providing detailed testimony. I think NCIS has financial records, communication logs, and physical evidence of your smuggling operation. Elena paused. And I think you just confessed to my father's murder on camera. The laughter stopped abruptly. What did you say? Elena tapped her jacket, where the button camera transmitted everything. Body cam, audio and video, Agent Rebecca Hawthorne has been recording since I walked in here. Everything you said, everything you admitted, the footage you showed me, Derek Hollis's confession, all documented and admissible in court. Vance's face went through several emotions rapidly. Shock, fury, calculation. His hand moved toward his sidearm. All units execute, execute, execute. Commander Brennan's voice exploded through Elena's earpiece and through loudspeakers positioned around the warehouse. Doors crashed open on three sides simultaneously. NCIS agents in tactical gear poured through, weapons raised, voices overlapping in trained chaos. Federal agents, hands up, drop your weapons, on your knees now. Vance's hand completed its draw. His pistol came up fast, tracking toward Elena with the speed of someone who'd spent 50 years training for combat. Reaper launched forward before Vance could fire. 85 pounds of Belgian Malinois covered 15 feet in explosive strides. The dog hit Vance's center mass with enough force to drive the man backward. Jaws clamped onto his gun arm. The pistol discharged, a deafening crack. But the round went wide, sparking off concrete. Blake Rutherford raised his rifle toward the incoming NCIS agents. Got off 3 rounds before return fire caught him in the chest. Body armor stopped the bullets, but kinetic impact broke ribs. He went down hard, gasping for air. Derek Hollis tried to run, made it 5 steps before Commander Brennan emerged from behind equipment crates, M4 carbine at shoulder level. "Don't move or I drop you where you stand." Hollis froze, slowly raised his hands. Wyatt Shepard was smarter, or more cowardly. He dropped his weapon immediately, hands shooting skyward, voice loud with surrender. "Don't shoot. I'm unarmed. I surrender." Within 30 seconds, it was over. Vance lay on concrete with Reaper's jaws clamped on his arm and 4 NCIS agents pointing weapons at his head. Rutherford was handcuffed, groaning from broken ribs, being treated by a medic. Hollis and Shepard were both restrained, faces pressed against floor. Agent Hawthorne approached Elena, holstering her weapon. "You okay?" "Yeah, I'm okay." "Reaper release," Elena commanded. The dog let go immediately, trotting back to Elena's side. His tail wagged once. Mission complete. Pack protected. Hawthorne looked at Vance with an expression of pure disgust. "Captain Richmond Vance, you're under arrest for treason, conspiracy to commit murder, smuggling of controlled materials, and approximately 40 other federal charges. I'll enumerate them on the way to lockup." She began reading his rights. "You have the right to remain silent." "This is a mistake," Vance interrupted. His voice remained steady despite pain and restraints. "I have connections. Lawyers will make your evidence inadmissible. You can't possibly, your connections can't help you anymore," Hawthorne said. "We have Brock Maddox's testimony. We have your confession on video, recorded with your knowledge per the Chief Petty Officer's statement that she was recording. We have financial records of communication logs and enough evidence to convict you 20 times over." She hauled him to his feet with unnecessary roughness. "Your operation is done. Your career is done. You're done." Other agents processed the remaining prisoners, reading rights, documenting injuries, moving with mechanical efficiency. Elena stood in the center of the warehouse, suddenly aware her legs were shaking. The adrenaline that had sustained her through confrontation was draining away, leaving exhaustion and emotion in its wake. Kane appeared at her side. He was supposed to be in the tactical vehicle, but of course he wasn't. He'd positioned himself inside the warehouse, ready to intervene if things went wrong. "You did it, kid," he said quietly. "You got them all. The footage of my father, it'll be analyzed by forensics. Hollis will be charged with murder. They'll all spend the rest of their lives in federal prison. It's not enough. They took 13 years from me. 13 years of questions and grief." Her voice broke. Kane pulled her into a careful hug, mindful of his injuries. I know it's not enough. Nothing ever could be. But it's justice, and that's what Garrett would have wanted." Lena let herself lean into the embrace for just a moment. Let herself be the 26-year-old daughter who'd lost her father instead of the warrior who'd hunted his killers across 13 years and 10,000 miles. Then she pulled back, wiping her eyes. "There's still the shipment. Maddox said weapons-grade plutonium leaving within 72 hours. Hawthorne's team intercepted it this morning. 10 kilograms of weapons-grade plutonium packed for transport to Syria through a front company. The entire network is compromised. Every cell, every contact, every safe house." Kane smiled grimly. "It's over." 6 months later, the trials concluded. Military tribunals, not civilian courts. These were active duty personnel charged with crimes committed while in uniform. Elena testified for 3 days, detailed everything from her father's journals to the mineshaft confrontation to Vance's confession in the warehouse. Defense attorneys tried every angle to discredit her testimony. None of it worked. The evidence was overwhelming, irrefutable, devastating. Captain Richmond Vance, guilty on all counts. Life imprisonment without possibility of parole. Dishonorable discharge. Senior Chief Brock Maddox, guilty on all counts. 45 years. Dishonorable discharge. Lieutenant Commander Blake Rutherford, guilty. 35 years. Dishonorable discharge. Chief Warrant Officer Derek Hollis, guilty of murder, treason, smuggling. 40 years. Dishonorable discharge. Petty Officer First Class Wyatt Shepard, guilty. 25 years. Dishonorable discharge. When they led Vance away in shackles, he looked at Elena one final time. "This isn't over." "Yes," she said quietly, "it is." 2 years after the arrest, Chief Petty Officer Elena Sterling stood before her first class of K-9 handler trainees. 20 students, 10 men, 10 women, the most diverse group the program had ever accepted. They looked nervous, uncertain, worried they weren't good enough for this work. Elena understood perfectly. She'd felt the same way standing outside these kennels 30 months ago. Fort Rosecrans National Cemetery overlooked the Pacific Ocean. Rows of white headstones marching in perfect formation across manicured grass. The sky was clear, the kind of perfect California day that felt like a gift. A new headstone marked Garrett Sterling's grave, larger than before, more detailed. Master Chief Garrett Sterling, SEAL Team 3, K-9 handler, 1970-2011, murdered in service to his country. Justice served 2024. Trust the dogs, they know the truth. Beside it, a bronze plaque. This memorial honors all service members killed by corruption within their ranks. May their sacrifice never be forgotten. May their killers face eternal judgment. Elena stood at attention in her dress blues, Chief's anchors gleaming on her collar. Reaper sat beside her, now 9 years old, gray creeping into his muzzle, but still strong, still alert, still utterly devoted. The memorial service was everything the first funeral hadn't been. Not a quiet affair with a handful of mourners. This was official. Full military honors, Commander Brennan presiding, Agent Hawthorne in attendance, 40 Navy SEALs in dress blues standing at attention. The rifle volleys cracked across the cemetery. 21 shots echoing over water, 21 reminders that freedom required blood. A bugler played taps. The mournful notes drifted out over the Pacific, carried on ocean winds toward horizons unknown. The flag that had covered the memorial was folded with precise ceremony and presented to Elena. She accepted it, held it against her chest, felt the weight of tradition and honor and grief compressed into colored cloth. The service concluded. People began dispersing, but Elena remained, standing before her father's memorial, Reaper solid and warm beside her. Kane approached. He'd made the trip from Oregon despite his retirement, traveling 2 days to be here for this moment. His limp was less pronounced. Physical therapy and time had helped heal the worst damage. "He'd be proud," Kane said simply. "I hope so. I know so. You did what he couldn't. Finished the mission. And now you're making sure the next generation doesn't face the same betrayals." He paused. "That's the best way to honor him." Lena turned back to the memorial, placed one hand on cold stone. "I did it, Dad. Got them all. Vance, Maddox, Rutherford, Hollis, Shepard. All of them in federal prison for life. The operation is shut down. The materials are secured. You can rest now." Reaper leaned against her leg, a reminder of presence, partnership, the pact that transcended death. "I've got your job now, training handlers your way, teaching them that dogs are partners, not tools. That honor matters, that integrity matters, that doing the right thing matters even when it's hard." She stood and saluted one final time, held it while tears came freely. "Rest easy, Master Chief. Your daughter's got it from here." 6 months after the trials, Elena received a letter from Oregon. Kane had written it by hand, his script shaky but determined. "Elena, I'm putting down roots here. The cabin's quiet, but Garrett the dog. Not your father, though sometimes I talk to both, keeps me company. I'm writing that memoir. First chapter is about Panama '89 when your dad saved my life the first time. I used to think I failed him by not pushing harder after Kandahar. But you taught me something. Legacy isn't about what we do alone. It's about what we pass forward. Your father's legacy isn't just in those journals. It's in you, in every handler you train, in every dog that's treated as a partner instead of a weapon. Thank you for letting me help finish what he started. Thank you for reminding me that it's never too late to do the right thing. Your friend always, Thaddeus Kane. Peace. Garrett the dog just knocked over my coffee. Your father would have laughed. Elena folded the letter carefully, placed it in her father's journal. Two warriors, two generations, one unbreakable bond. Reaper nudged her hand. She looked down at the old dog, gray muzzle, clouded eyes, but still that absolute loyalty. Come on, boy, she whispered. Let's go train some new handlers. Show them what we've learned. The dog's tail wagged, slower now but steady. They walked together toward the kennels, toward the future her father had died believing in. 1 year later, Elena stood before her first class of canine handler trainees at Naval Special Warfare Center. My name is Chief Sterling, she began. My father, Master Chief Garrett Sterling, was the best canine handler Naval Special Warfare ever produced. He taught me everything I know about working with dogs. She walked down the line, making eye contact with each trainee. Dogs are not tools. They're not weapons. They're partners, teammates, warriors who will save your life if you respect them and earn their trust. Reaper trotted to her side, sitting at perfect heel, the transformation visible to everyone watching. This is Reaper. He's saved my life more times than I can count. He's completed missions that most humans couldn't, and he's done it all 'cause we're pack. We trust each other. Absolutely. She paused. My father taught me trust the T's. They know the truth. They know who the wolves are. Listen to them, learn from them, become pack with them, and they'll never let you down. The students listened with the intensity of people understanding they were receiving something valuable, something hard-won and precious. Over the following months, Elena rebuilt the K9 program from the ground up. New training methods based on partnership rather than domination. Higher standards that emphasized trust over obedience. Ethical guidelines that treated dogs as the sentient beings they were. Trent Aldrich became her assistant instructor. Fully reformed, genuinely dedicated to doing better. You're changing the whole culture, he said one evening after a particularly grueling training session. The old culture got my father killed. Time for a new one. You think it'll stick after you're gone? It'll stick because I'm training people who will train the next generation. Legacy isn't about what you do. It's about what you teach others to do. On the second anniversary of her father's death, Elena returned to Fort Rosecrans Cemetery. Reaper walked beside her, gray muzzle, slower gait, but still devoted. Fresh flowers already sat at the base of the memorial. She wasn't the only one who remembered Master Chief Garrett Sterling. She knelt, placing her own addition. A new photograph, not the old one of her father with young Elena. This one showed Elena in her chief's uniform, standing beside 20 canine handler graduates, all of them with their dogs, all of them ready to serve with honor. Your legacy continues, Dad, through them, through me, through every handler who learns that dogs are partners, not tools. Reaper settled beside her, head resting on her knee. I miss you every single day, but I'm okay. We're okay. The pack is strong. The Pacific wind carried her words away, toward whatever eternity held, toward whatever place her father had gone. She sat there for a long time, remembering, grieving, honoring. Then she stood, saluted one final time, and walked back toward the future. Behind her, the memorial stood silent and permanent, a reminder, a warning, a promise kept. The pack protects the pack, always and forever.